You are not born as a leader. You're chosen to be made one by God. Be excellent. Be simple. Be authentic. Be a leader. You must choose your life journey. Experience a God who's for you. Greetings. Welcome to our Leadership Lifter. I'm your host, David Blunt. I'm so glad you could join me. I'm really excited about the series that we've been in our Leadership Lifter, the difference between elite and average. What sets winners and losers apart? What sets average and the elite apart? What makes the difference? That's what I want to talk about today, because I'm here to help you become everything God created you to be. I'm here today to help you live your very best life. You see, well, Pastor Blunt, what qualifies you to talk about the difference between elite and average? Well, I want to go all the way back. As many of you may know or may not know, I'm a pastor of a local church in St. Louis, Missouri, but also I'm a leader, I'm a coach, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a mentor, I'm several things. I'm an employer, I'm an entrepreneur. Years ago, when I accepted the call into my calling to be a pastor, teacher, leader, I said to God, I just simply said, God, I'll do what you want me to do. I'll go where you want me to go. I surrender everything to you, but only one thing, God. I can still remember this. This was 1975, the second Sunday of October, when I went to the altar in that church I was in that Sunday morning. I said, but God, only this, I don't want to be average. I don't want to be average. I don't want to be average. And so, God's helped me, I believe, to live up to that. Here we are in this local church, which I planted 40 years ago with 35 people. 40 years later, a lot of people can start something, but they can't maintain it or even retain it or increase it. So going through 4 different decades of trends and changes, we have over 50 employees. We have over 200,000 square foot campus facilities, $70 million worth of assets, and the list goes on. God's really been good to us. With the 35 to today, several thousand call this church their church home. So I believe God answered my prayer, and I believe the best is yet to come. So this really is my heartbeat, is still to this day, after 40 years in the same location, I still want to be the elite. I want to live my best life. I want to do my very best. I want to give God my best version of me every day of my life. So I think that qualifies me to talk about it and share it with you, wherever you might be, whatever your calling, your purpose, your assignment on this earth is. So let's get into it today. And we've been talking about several different points previous to this podcast. You can go back and watch those. But today let's talk about the 5th thing that sets the average from the elite apart, and that is attention to detail. Attention to detail. Wow. The other day I was with a friend who is a life coach, a public speaker, known nationally, and I was sitting down with him, and we were talking about, excellence and improvement and growing and being our best. And he said to me, I decided that I was going to be a world-class speaker, a world-class speaker. I said, wow, that's awesome. I said, I believe you are. But I said, what sets people apart from being average to world-class? His answer to me was people with a world-class mindset, they pay attention to detail. That's powerful. If you go into a restaurant and they go above and beyond, I think Walt Disney called it the wow factor. If you go above and beyond to serve people, to add to people, like we want to do here with a Leadership Lifter, I believe it leaves a mark. It leaves, an imprint. It sets you apart when you go above and beyond. Walt Disney knew how to do this. My grandkids, they love to go to Disneyland and Disney World. And all the time they're sharing with me, because they research everything that goes on there and the history of all the rides and this, that, and the other. And they'll share these little details that no one else an average person would never even notice it. But the details that all that Disney did in Disneyland, it's amazing. It will actually set you apart. I think the Bible calls it being a second miler. When you're asked to do something, do above and beyond. Exceed people's expectations. Do more than you're asked to do. This is the mindset of the elite, paying attention to the small things that make a big impression. Years ago, I had a consultant, and he was a consultant to presidents. He flew an Air Force One. Wonderful man. Still to this day, he's on my board. And years ago, he told me, he said, Pastor, if you want to get the most out of your guest speakers that you bring in to speak at Church on the Rock, then you want to make sure that you find out what they like, the snacks in the room. Do they like a candle? What scent of candle? Do they like cologne? Or if it's a woman, perfume, what is that? What kind of food do they like? What kind of music do they like to listen to when you pick them up in the car and you bring them to church to speak? He went into great detail how if you'll do that, he told me, they'll give a better performance for you. They'll do better for you if you set it up for success by paying attention to the details. Here at Church on the Rock, our team, we go the extra mile every week and realizing that every little detail, from when people drive on our campus to when they leave our campus, every service, every bit of ministry that goes on here, that we can make a lasting impact if we'll do more than the average church will do, the average ministry will do. If we'll go above and beyond and exceed people's expectations, be a second miler, paying attention to the details. I remember years ago when I was on staff as a youth pastor, an associate pastor, I wanted to know my pastor. I wanted to know his favorite food. By the way, it was Chinese. I wanted to know his favorite cologne. Many of you won't even know what this was, but it was High Karate. This is way back in the 70s. I knew his favorite car was a Lincoln Continental. I knew where he bought his clothes. I knew what upset him. I knew what made him happy. I wanted to find out every little detail about him so I could serve him better. And you know what? When we felt like it was time for us, Kim and I, my wife, to leave and go on and begin to be a senior pastor, they didn't want us to leave. They didn't want us to go. They wanted us to stay. Why? Because we paid attention to detail. We went the extra mile. It makes a difference. So we're talking about average to elite, and we looked at several things, and attention to detail will set you apart.
You're called to lead, but you're feeling stuck? It's time to sharpen your leadership skills. This fall, join Lead with Grit, a 12-week leadership cohort led by Pastor David Blunt, built on biblical truth and real-world tools. Whether you're a pastor, a marketplace leader, or someone influencing your circle daily, this experience will stretch your mindset, deepen your resolve, and elevate your impact. Weekly Zoom sessions and one in-person kickoff, and a personalized growth plan designed just for you. Only 8 to 12 leaders will be selected. Are you ready to lead with courage, clarity, and grit? Apply by August 17th.
Then number 6, obsession with improvement. The greatest are obsessed with improvement. They have that mindset of growth. They have that mindset of getting better. They have that mindset that good isn't good enough, that there's always room for improvement. How can I improve? How can I get better? How can I grow? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this is a sports psychologist, and that's all he talked about in the podcast was the greatest athletes that he deals with. They have an obsession to improve. They celebrate what they have. They're thankful for where they are, but they realize they can always learn more, do more, and achieve more. That will set you apart, a growth mindset. It's really important that you're around people who have that right kind of a mindset. It's really important because who you're with, you become like them. Like kind reproduces like kind. Someone said we're the average of our 5 closest friends. We're the average of our 5 closest friends. So, obsession with improvement. You want to be around people who have that desire to grow, to improve. Again, I love to read and I love to learn. We're lifelong learners here on our team at Church on the Rock. And listening to a podcast the other day when I was working out with my sons. We were doing CrossFit together. working out together. We've done it for a long time. But while we're working out, we're always listening to an Audible book. We're always listening to a podcast like you're listening to right now. We're always wanting to learn, do two things at one time, working out, but yet learning and listening to Audible books, audiobooks. And this when we were listening to, very successful entrepreneur was talking about who he looked for to hire, what he looked for in someone when he went to hire them. The bottom line, hire the best so you can be your best. We'll never rise above our team. The teamwork makes the dream work. That's the bottom line. But this is so good. He said, when I'm looking for potential employees or intentional team members, he said, I look for this one trait. And what this trait was amazing, he said, ambition. He said, I'm looking for people with ambition. They have a desire to aspire. They have a drive to get better, to constantly keep improving, constantly keep learning. I've been here pastoring this wonderful church for 40 years. But you know what? I'm reading, I'm listening, webinars, I have mentors, I have coaches. I want to get better. I want to improve. I want to become and live the best life God has for me. Like I want that to happen for you. So what will set you from average to the elite? These are just a few things, an obsession with constantly improving. So as we close today, I want you to ask yourself this. Here's a little bit of homework. What's one thing you want to improve in the next 24 hours? Just one thing. Don't try to do a lot of things because it gets overwhelming, but just pick one thing. What's one thing? The other day for me, and I'm a communicator. That's what I do. I communicate, all right? But yet, the other day I was thinking of this. I said, I want to get better communication, all right? That's one thing that I wanted to improve in. What's the one thing you want to improve in the next 24 hours? So the next question is, what's one action step that you can take to make that improvement? So I went out and I hired a communication coach. You see, really? Yeah. After 40 years of communicating, public speaking, I still want to get better. I still want to improve. And so that was one thing I wanted to improve in. So I got to take an action step. What did I do? I went out and I got a communication coach. So I just want to encourage you to do the same. I want you to know that the best is yet to come. I want you to know that God didn't create us to be mediocre, average, like everybody else. You're unique, and God made you the way He made you, and God has a plan and a purpose for your life, and you don't want to miss it. Well, if you've enjoyed today, I want you to put like and share it with a friend. Tell people about it. Until our next podcast, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be better. Don't forget, God is for you.